Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Baithak. And today we have a power-packed show about our favorite filmmaker, Guru Dutt. We'll be talking a lot about him, his movies. But before we do that, as always, we want to show a little bit about the rules and how we'll be conducting the Baithak. The etiquettes are quite simple. For best viewing experience, please keep your Zoom in speaker view. And keep your video on if you must, but audio should be mute. We will be taking comments along the way. We will have various videos we will show in about 2 to 3 minute clips. And after that, we'll open the floor. Feel free to continue to put comments in the chat. We will welcome those. And we will also, if you want to speak live when we open for comments, please raise your hand icon. We will do that. And keep your comments brief, and so forth. That's kind of the rules of the Baithak so that everybody can have fun. We will do quick introductions, and let me start with introduction of Harish. Harish,
अपना पहले बोल तू कौन है?
मैं कौन हूँ? मैं बताता हूँ आपको मेरी कहानी।
मुसाफिर हूँ यारो, ना घर है ना ठिकाना, मुझे चलते जाना है, बस चलते जाना।
You used to be so handsome. क्या हुआ तेरा?
ऐसे ही होता है। मैंने सफेद पैंट पहननी छोड़ दी, पर इसकी
question. Have you actually ridden on Tanga?
Of course.
आजकल लोगों को पता नहीं होगा ना?
पता ही नहीं होता टांगा क्या है। तो सही बात है।
I remember when I was very young, like 50s की बात कर रहे हैं,
हाँ.
we had run away from Pakistan now, और लायलपुर से हम लोग मुल्तान से भाग के आ गए. So from railway station, Delhi railway station, we used to take tangas, in those days.
That's right.
To go to wherever we were staying.
Yes.
And so forth.
And you could choose behind the working end of the horse and be careful about that. but this song जो है ना, ये मैं सोच रहा था, किसी को बता रहा था कितना philosophical song है, कितना अच्छा है वो कहता नहीं, ये सिर्फ उनको पसंद है जो NRI होते हैं। ये NRI वाला सॉन्ग है, ना घर है ना ठिकाना। ठीक है यार, ये भी उसने। अच्छा, आप बताएं हरीश जी, आपकी इंट्रोडक्शन कर दें।
हाँ, okay. So my name is Harish. And the only thing I think we should say is that you cannot go by my appearance, by my appearance. देखने में I only look stupid.
Okay.
You can't go just because I look stupid doesn't mean. I mean, there's an old clip of mine, which
दिखा दें?
Yeah, दिखा दो.
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart, and I want respect.
कमाल है।
There.
कमाल है। बिल्कुल, आपने तो बिल्कुल उस समय आपके बाल भी थे। ये तो वो है। For those who don't know, this is Godfather 2, of course, very famous scene. आप बताएं इसके बारे में हल्का सा।
I mean, this is everything is done so perfectly in Godfather 1 and 2. Third was a disaster. And there are some scenes which are just unbelievably well directed, well acted. John Cazales was in this scene. And it's the striking scene in which, Michael ends up saying, "You are nothing to me now." And actually makes up his mind that he's going to kill him after his mother dies and so forth, But the thing is that we had talked earlier about how it's important to have subtext in a scene. When people say something in a story, particularly in movies, it shouldn't be exactly कि मैं बहुत खुश हूँ, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए, There should be subtext. There is a story of this famous actor who was shooting a film in Egypt at that time, and he walked on the third day or something. He walked out of the John Malkovich. He walked out of the movie because, listen to this, his character was saying exactly what he was thinking. The character should not always be saying what he's thinking. It should have a subtext to it. So meanwhile, he's saying, I'm smart, when you can tell he's stupid.
And similar.
And then he's trying to be courageous, but you could tell he's shaking.
Exactly right.
You know,
Exactly.
even his body language. You know, it's too bad John Cazales died too young. You know, he was in Dog Day Afternoon, The Deer Hunter. You know, he was a friend of Robert De Niro, where he had cancer and he died young. I
So
mean,
Harish ji,
so listen,
ये
bolo.
मैं ये कहने वाला था, the rules of the game जिनको पता नहीं है पहले, हरीश and I will interrupt each other. हम पंजाबी हैं, this is how we work. कोई ऐसी दिल पे लेने वाली बात नहीं है. And we will meander on subjects because we are not experts in Guru Dutt, but we are experts in many other things that we will come inside randomly. तो हमारा यही असूल है.
Don't blame me. अपनी बात करो. I mean,
अच्छा.
expert. I'm expert. I mean, the point is that think about friends like you and us, all of you, sitting together in the evening, having chai and samosa. I mean, Anurag is in charge of pakoras and samosas, and you can see he hasn't brought any. But you're California mein hai na, so different rules. So, but we're just sitting around talking, happen to talk about a certain subject. We go down rabbit holes, koi side track ho jayega, phir udhar koi baat yaad aa gayi, koi poetry yaad aa gayi, koi joke yaad aa gaya. So it's not a scholarly presentation. It's not a paper, an ultimate, statement on a subject. So.
तो शुरू करें फिर गुरुदत्त की बात आज.
I thought we had already started.
हाँ, तो आज मैं बताता हूँ गुरुदत्त के बारे में little bit, right? He's a very interesting character for those who don't know. First of all, let me do a quick quiz for people. He shares his last name with a top Bollywood star of today. Who is she? चैट में डालिए, देखते हैं. गुरुदत्त का असली नाम, लास्ट नाम बताइए. यहाँ चैट में डालिए.
दत्त गीता दत्त होगा ना?
यही तो टॉप बॉलीवुड स्टार टुडे. चलो आगे चलते हैं. It is Deepika Padukone.
Oh my God.
Guru Dutt was born as Vasant Kumar Shiv Shankar Padukone.
Oh my God.
So ठीक है. To his credit, he shortened it to
doing a program in Vasant Kumar Padukone.
कोई नहीं आने वाला था. कोई नहीं आने वाला. हाँ. So he was born in 1925 in Bengal. He was obviously fluent in Bengali. 1925, and his father was a headmaster and a banker. And by the way, his second cousin is Shyam Benegal, which I know you have a lot to say about Shyam Benegal. You've worked.
Yeah, we'll do a thing. Yeah, he's one of my heroes, and he told me an interesting story about Ankur. I remember. One day we will do Benegal. I'll tell you the story.
बिल्कुल ठीक. And also I realized that his niece was Kalpa Lajmi, जिसने वो रुदाली बनाई थी, which is a pretty decent film. Bhupen Hazarika का music था. Anyway, the thing about Guru Dutt, I think right away you have to realize that he was a complete filmmaker. कुछ director होते थे, कुछ producer होते थे. He was a director, producer, actor, writer, and choreographer. Like his song sequences, he's actually, for other filmmakers early on, he choreographed the dances, etc. So he was a what you would call a complete filmmaker, and that was quite interesting. And he produced and directed 8 films, right? Not the same, different ones, right? We'll talk about those. His 4 most popular films that most people already know are like Pyasa, Kaagaz Ke Phool, Chaudhary Ka Chand, or Saabi Bhi Gulam. We'll talk about those at length. He directed and produced the first 2, but only produced the last 2. People think that he directed them, but he didn't. We'll talk about that also. And Pyasa is considered obviously his magnum opus, his best movie, among the top 100 best ever. And he worked closely with a set of people we will talk a lot more about, like Devanand, Wahida Rahman, Johnny Walker, etc., etc. And he had a core set of DP writers, etc., who were his core team over the years. He was married to Geeta Roy. Geeta Dutt became an unhappy marriage. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. And he had a melancholic streak in life, and he died actually before he even turned 40. He was 39 or something.
41? I thought it was 41. Okay.
My math was about 39 or something before he turned 40. And it was considered by some suicide, some accidental sleeping pill overdose, and sad circumstances. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we will jump right in. But before we do that, Harishji, in your mind, what makes Guru Dutt such a unique figure?
The interesting thing is that if you look at Satyajit Ray, there's a certain quality to films, and you can tell right away it's a Satyajit Ray film, or Ritwik Ghatak, or even Shyam Benegal. Guru Dutt was jumping all over the place, in the themes, romantic hai, spy hai, CID, no CID, Mr. and Mrs. 55, Pyasa vagara. Eventually, I think he was getting to the theme in Pyasa and then Kaagaz Ke Phool vagara, poet vagara, samaj ke against jo bhi hua. But he died too soon, I think, to establish a proper pattern, So it's difficult to analyze it that way. But he was a complete, like you mentioned, a complete filmmaker, and then his techniques were fantastic, and his choice of poetry, of the poets and poetry and music, the director has a big hand in that. His casting was excellent, and performances are very nice, everyone's performance is very nice and so forth. So it's a totally enjoyable movies. I don't think they make movies like that anymore, what he did in the 50s, so forth.
That's right. So when I was thinking about much what you're saying, he evolved as a filmmaker. उसका पहली movies का पता नहीं लगता कि ये इतना कमाल की movies बनाएगा later on. So वो जो idea नहीं है, the French people say they have this idea of auteur, like, versus a filmmaker. An auteur is somebody who has a vision, like Fellini or others, who start out with a clear sense of a vision that starts showing early on, and all their movies, they have an imprint that you can determine. And he was kind of becoming an auteur, but not quite there, right? So there were two things which I thought, when I look back from growing up with some of his movies, which I thought was very unique about his movie / his filmmaking style. One is that he was a romantic figure. They say what the Hindi word is rasiya. And what's interesting is that I found two incidents that I confirmed that he was basically a romantic figure at heart, which was that, when he was 90 years old, he was thrown out of a job because he was flirting with a leading lady.
He was with
Uday dance company ki leading lady. He was flirting with it and he got thrown out.
He was with Uday Shankar, Ravi Shankar's brother, I believe, in Almora. And he had a very famous dance company and so forth.
Exactly. So obviously, and second thing, which is even more interesting, he was 22 and he was working as a freelancer at some production company in between jobs. And he ran away.
It's called Prabhat in Pune mein thi. The company was called Prabhat. It was a very famous film company.
But
Prabhat.
I don't think whether it was Prabhat where this incident happened, where he eloped with a leading, one of the women dancer called Vidya.
Yeah.
He eloped, right? And uska the fiance, Vidya's fiance had to threaten police action on Guru Dutt at 22. What are you doing? And then he finally, we don't know the details, but apparently the matter was settled behind the scene in those days. So obviously he was a figure who had this inclination, a deeply romantic figure, even in his youth. And then later on, I think that turned into melancholy. And we realized that as he took to drinking and et cetera, et cetera. I think those characteristics are showing early.
This is a common theme among leaders. Picasso ki biography par lo. I mean, I don't know, probably 1,000 affairs or God knows what. Basketball players ko dekh lo, presidents ko dekh lo. There is a common theme, underlying theme. Of people with the, high achievers having a high sex drive and all that. So later on, I think if we have time, we should talk about that. Ki ye kya baat hai, kyun hota hai, and so forth. If we have time,
Bilkul theek. So we'll move along. This is setting up. So let's talk a little bit about beginning. His early origin, Bazi was one of his early things, but only setup I have that Devanand and Rahman, he met early at the Prabhat company, right?
I'll tell you. So they were working in Prabhat, like we mentioned, where he ran away with one of the girls. His mother had gotten him this job, because he was floundering all over the place and so forth. So India mein dhobi hote hain, you send. So he didn't have many good clothes, so he sent his clothes out for dhobi. Dhobi brought his favorite shirt. He had one good shirt back, and turned out he mixed it up. He brought somebody else's shirt. He had to go to work. But the shirt he brought was better than his own shirt. So maine kaha chalo, and it fit him. तो उन्होंने कहा चलो आप पहन देते हैं, आप कहाँ धोबी जाके ढूंढेगा, where the hell is my shirt and so forth. So he goes to the studio, and there's one guy there at the studio and looks at him and said, what the hell are you doing? That's my shirt. It turns out they had the same dhobi, and the other guy, the guy's shirt was delivered to Guru Dutt, and Guru Dutt wore the shirt. And Guru Dutt honestly told him, "Ki bhai garbad ho gayi, dhobi brought the wrong shirt. Main kya karta? I have only one good shirt." The other guy said, "Fine, you know what? Take the shirt. It's your shirt from now on." The other guy's name was Devanand.
Acha.
And that's how they became friends.
Yeah.
And they made a promise to each other. They're both struggling, and whoever has a break in life will help the other. And as I think you'll come to it, that Bazi mein, and similarly, he met Rahman there, and we'll talk about Johnny Walker later on. So,
yeah.
And he met people like V.K. Murthy, cinematographer, Albar Alvi, who wrote all his things. Yeah. Raj Khosla was the writer and so forth. And then later on, he met Wahida Rahman. So it became a team kind of thing.
Exactly. So let's talk about Bazi, which was the first movie we want to talk about before we show a little bit of movie clip and the songs particularly. What's interesting about Bazi is that it was a huge hit in 1951. Next to Awara, which was obviously a huge hit, right? And it's the first Hindi film noir, right? Which is like morally ambiguous hero, a vamp kind of character, and black and white style of directing. So borrowed from obviously Hollywood, influenced of Hollywood of 40s. And the other thing that's interesting about the story is that the writer of this movie is Balraj Sahni. I did not realize that. Balraj Sahni wrote the script for Bazi. And by the way, Balraj Sahni is like, obviously, we can do a show on him alone, but so ye Balraj Sahni ki kahani hai. And then Balraj Sahni also introduced Johnny Walker to Guru Dutt. We'll talk about that later. So let's watch this, and we will talk a little bit more about that. So let me start sharing.
निगाहों से भला क्यों डरता है ज़माने की निगाहों से भला क्यों इंसाफ तेरे साथ है इल्जाम उठा ले अपने पे भरोसा है तो ये दाव लगा ले दाव लगा ले सुनो गजर क्या गाए समय गुजरता जाए और दिन वाले और भोले भाले सोना ना सुनो गजर क्या गाए समय गुजरता जाए तेरे जीवन के धूम मचल अब दिन है मिलन के गिन चुन पल है तेरे जीवन के धूम मचल अब दिन है मिलन के और दिन वाले और भोले भाले सोना ना सुनो गजर क्या गाए
Amazing.
How much has song choreography changed over time, huh?
That's it. Ek jagah khade hoke, just twist your hands, and that was the choreography.
Yeah. And now Aishwarya Rai chhalang maar rahi hai.
Exactly right. And Geeta Bali, by the way, very vivacious actress. Sadani. I didn't realize she was Sadani, her Kirtan Kaur from Chandigarh.
Oh, acha.
And her niece was Yogita Bali later on. Right. So it was a very interesting connection. And obviously, sadly, she passed away very young and was married to Shami Kapoor, etc. So, other thing which is interesting about this movie, Bazi, is that the heroine actually is not a vamp. The heroine was Kalpana Karthik, who later on became Devanand's wife. Right. And she was actually a Christian, which I didn't know. And her Kalpana Karthik was a screen name, which was a very common thing in those days.
Yeah, and he
Muslim and Christian girls
couldn't marry Suraya because her family won't allow and so forth. So, yeah.
Anyway, so let's move on to our next topic, which is a very important character, Johnny Walker. आप बताएं.
तो हुआ क्या कि Johnny Walker was working as a bus conductor in Best best are the buses in BEST. Buses, I think, they used to be red, I think. Prema, they used to be red. Yeah, red buses in Bombay. He was a conductor, and he used to do antics, comedy karta tha, you couldn't imagine his voice and all that stuff. And Balraj Sahni was there, and he saw this guy, and he said, this might be a good thing to put in a movie or something. So usko leke aa gaya studio mein and introduced him to Guru Dutt. So when they met, Johnny Walker was completely drunk. And falling all over this and that, and Guru Dutt dekh raha hai, kya ho gaya? And after about 2-3 minutes, he sobered up, and he was only acting, he was just showing. It's not take. So they became friends. So for no reason at all, he tried to give his name was Badruddin Jamaluddin Qazi.
That's right.
Badruddin Jamaluddin Qazi. He kept giving him work and roles here and there. And is Vijay here? Vijay?
Yes.
Lovely.
So my friend Vijay Sheth knew him. Bolo.
No, not really that much. His daughter used to live in Newcastle, PA, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh, near us. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's about 50-minute bus ride from Pittsburgh.
Achha.
He used to come by bus and visit me in my store and travel agency.
Mm-hmm.
And they would sit with me, chat with me for, now I've forgotten what I was really busy at that time too.
Mm-hmm.
He would share my tea that I made from home. But I think the main reason he would come is he had probably taken the bus ride from Newcastle to downtown and then downtown to Oakland. And so he just needed some break in between, and this was a good break he chose, and he came down and sat with me, talked to him about some movies, and I told him that the only best movie I liked was Anand,
Beautiful.
where his role was probably the best as far as I can remember. I don't think any other roles were as good as that for his character.
So he had retired here in near Pittsburgh. Achha.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember, didn't his daughter work for you for a while?
That is afterwards.
Achha.
That is much later.
Achha. Because I remember meeting her. Now I wanted to meet him, but hua nahi, so everybody was so busy, take things for granted and all that. So
yes.
Okay.
Amazing talent. And obviously, he did some of his best work other than Anand, which was Rishikesh Mukherjee much later. Some of his early performances were best under Guru Dutt movies. And let's see if we can enjoy a couple of Johnny Walker movies. Anything else? Should we दिखाएं?
पर हुआ ऐसा जादू तबीयत मचल गई नजरें मिली क्या किसी से कि हालत बदल गई दिल है मुश्किल जीना यहाँ जरा हट के जरा बच के ये है बॉम्बे मेरी जान कहीं बिल्डिंग कहीं ट्राम में कहीं मोटर कहीं मिलता है यहाँ सब कुछ एक मिलता नहीं दिल कहीं बिल्डिंग कहीं ट्राम में कहीं मोटर कहीं मिलता है यहाँ सब कुछ एक मिलता नहीं दिल इंसान का नहीं कहीं नाम और निशान जरा हट के जरा बच के ये है बॉम्बे मेरी जान दिल मुश्किल जीना यहाँ जरा हट के जरा बच के ये है बॉम्बे मेरी जान
बुरा दुनिया वो है कहता ऐसा भोला तो न बन जो है करता वो है भरता है यहाँ का ये चलन दादागीर नहीं चलने की यहाँ ये है बॉम्बे ये है बॉम्बे ये है बॉम्बे मेरी जान
ऐ दिल है मुश्किल जीना यहाँ जरा हट के जरा बच के ये है सर जो तेरा चकराए या दिल डूबा जाए, आजा प्यारे पास हमारे, काहे घबराए, काहे घबराए। तेल मेरा है मुस्की, गंज रहे ना खुशकी, जिसके सर पर हाथ फिरा दूं चमके किस्मत उसकी। तेल मेरा है मुस्की, गंज रहे ना खुशकी, जिसके सर पर हाथ फिरा दूं चमके किस्मत उसकी। सुन 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 अरे बेटा सुन, इस चंपी में बड़े बड़े गुण। सुन 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 अरे बेटा सुन, इस चंपी में बड़े बड़े गुण। लाख दुखों की एक दवा है, क्यों ना आजमाए, काहे घबराए, काहे घबराए।
I mean, it's over the top, but it's fun. You know, we know all these songs, right? All of us know these songs, and we haven't watched them for such a long time. You know, I had fun. Of course, I edited them down so we would not take too much time and so forth.
It's a very lovely song. One fact, the Sar Mera Chakra is obviously a very famous song, and his performance is really good. I was reading that the music is not by SD in this particular song, but by his son RD, who was about 18, 19 years old at that time. I don't know whether that's true or not.
He copied it from the movie Harry Black and the Tiger.
Ah, this particular song, music?
Yeah. Harry Black and the Tiger make tune hai. And Stuart Granger, I remember that movie very distinctly because it was the first English film I saw in a theater with my own money. See, my school used to show movies every week or every month or something, you know, they had a projector and all that in Nainital. But every week or every other week we were allowed to go into town, and everybody remember went and saw Paying Guest, and I wanted to see I read in Film Fair or someplace a good review, so I went and saw Harry Black and the Tiger. I remember that very much. You know, first time, I mean, I was shocked. You know, 16:9 frame as opposed to a square, color as opposed to black and white, good sound and all that. You know, anyway, but it's a tune from Harry Black and the Tiger.
Interesting. So, आगे चलते हैं. After this, we're not going to cover all these movies, but there's one movie and the song that you're going to introduce from Mr. and Mrs. 55. This is Pritam An Milo, right? आप जरा बताएं उसके बारे में.
So Pritam An Milo, C.H. Atma was a very big singer. Particularly because his voice was like Saigal's voice. Saigal, of course, was a superstar, and C.H. Atma wasn't as good, but he was still very good. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows Pritam An Milo and the other song. There's one song, if you're really looking for, this is his best song, is इस बेवफा जहां में वफा ढूंढते रहे नादां थे हम भी कितने ये क्या ढूंढते रहे. So if you Google that, you'll find it is, I don't think there's a video clip, but there's an audio. इस बेवफा जहां में वफा ढूंढते रहे. Unbelievable, beautiful song. Anyway, he sang this song. The song is in Rag Yaman, which is generally the first raga taught to classical singers. Not always, but first raga taught and so forth. And it's a non-film song, and he sang it. And there was a young composer who was in his 20s who composed it for him. And the song was written by the composer's wife, whose name was Saroj Mohini. And it was different than, it was just a tabla, sitar, organ, vagara laga ke. And the song was issued, and only C.H. Atma's name was on it, became a hit. And along came Guru Dutt, and he heard the song, so he's like, "Bada acha gana hai, I want this for my film." So he met the music director, whose name happened to be O.P. Nair. It was O.P. Nair's first song before the fame. This one made him famous. Guru Dutt then brought the song, had Geeta Dutt, who was his wife, sang the song. You know, only one stanza of the song was, the whole song is available in C.H. Atma's voice and so forth. And we have a clip. Do we?
Yes,
have a
of
clip,
course.
right?
Let me play it. Yeah, let me play it.
जिया बुलाए प्रीतम आन मिलो
Someday we should do a show on Madhubala, yeah.
I agree.
It
would be an easy show to put together. Absolutely stunning. Yeah. So we are going to move to we have covered his early career, his early life, and wanted to see if people have any comments or any questions in the chat or otherwise. Raise their hands. We'll be happy to entertain them. Somebody raised the hand. Hanji, आप पिट्सबर्ग पत्रिका के नाम से हैं, आपका Zoom आप बताइए.
Prema.
Hello, I'm Prema here, even though it has...
She is partially responsible for this Baithak. She's been goading me, telling me कि कुछ करो, जिंदगी बर्बाद कर रहे हो.
I love I missed a couple of episodes, but I love the way you guys cover this. And I get to listen to all the old, at least the songs from prior to my era, I like to think. But anyhow, the comments I wanted to make was, one was, I think Pyasa was made as a autobiography of himself. And because he apparently had a very tough early life, and he tried to, his difficulty of becoming an actor, he tried to convey through the film. And of course, it is extremely beautiful, and it has all those themes that it plays on, rich. He falls in love with this very exquisitely rich socialite, Mala Sinha, who jilts him. Yeah. And it's this prostitute that saves him and makes his poetry famous. It's a beautiful movie. All the songs are wonderful.
We're about to talk about that. We're about to talk about Pyasa just now.
And one other point, Kaagaz Ke Phool was a big flop and nobody liked it.
That's
though
right.
It is one of the most beautiful films too. Especially the one about where he takes you through the studio. I don't remember the song.
We have
we'll cover that. We'll cover both of those.
Both of them, right. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Hanji, or quick comment on the stuff we have covered so far? Any comments on that? We are covering a lot of his new work, later work just now. Yes. Reena, you had some question. Why was he melancholic? Was there some early trauma in his life?
Yes.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. In early life, I don't know. आपका कुछ है? कुछ theory उस पे?
नहीं, बाद में
बात करेंगे. Okay.
Somebody else.
Hanji, who else? Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Harish. This is Jaswant from Pittsburgh. I just wanted to add a comment what Vijay said about Johnny Walker. In 1973, when I was a resident, his son-in-law was also resident with me, and that's how he used to come to Pittsburgh. Oh. We had a Diwali dinner, Harish. There were about 30, 40 people, and we invited him, and that's the first time I saw him. He was so serious. Somebody asked him, he said, could you please give some skits of your movie? He would not respond. He was dead serious about, I could not believe a man who could make millions laugh. Yeah. When I saw him, I could believe that that's the same Johnny Walker. So I just wanted to share that with you, Harish and Anurag. It was wonderful to see him.
I should tell everybody that Dr. Jashwant Sharma was partially a part involved. When remember when we were talking about Hum Dono ki color version hua tha, and his son wanted to bring it, and Dr. Sharma was very much helping and asking me to bring them to Pittsburgh and so forth. So hua nahi during festivals, but anyway.
Okay. Thank you. Let's keep moving. Thank you so much for your comments. If you could just mute yourself, that will help us technically. So let's talk about Pyasa. This is obviously a big milestone for him after all these commercial movies. And I'll just set it up very quickly for those who don't know the movie very well. And
वो कौन होगा?
कौन हो सकता है? सही बात है. प्लॉट के अंदर अगर हम पूछने लग जाएं तो क्विज होगा इसके बाद. So basically, it's considered 2011 Time Magazine Best 10 Films. Right? A cult following in France, Germany, Japan, Singapore, obviously very top film. The story is about a down and out poet, Urdu poet, rejected by his family and his former girlfriend, Malasina Mina, who marries rich. He meets a prostitute, street girl, Gulabo Wahida Rahman, and falls in love with him, who falls in love with him and his poems. There's a freak situation. He's considered dead and becomes and somebody else dies with his coat on. People think he's dead. His poems become successful, and he's honored posthumously after his death. And he shows up. And people are like shocked about that. And he basically has a very climatic set of scenes around why this world has dochita, double-faced standards, and so forth. And in the last scene, he goes off with Gulabo, and that's kind of the story of it. What's interesting about it, just to start very interestingly, is that the role originally, he wanted to have Dilip Kumar play the role. And Dilip Kumar turned it down, saying, this is too much like Devdas, main kar chuka hoon. I don't need to do another Devdas. And we discussed this when we did our Devdas episode. And Dilip Kumar actually later on regretted it, that he should have said yes to Pyasa. And of course, then other thing was that the Pyasa is very unique story for very simple 3 reasons, I think. And we can discuss it if necessary before we jump into some of the songs and the technical aspects of the movie. First is, it is autobiographical, as you correctly pointed out, right? The story originally is based upon a story he wrote when he was 22 called Kashmakash, which is a story of his own youth and angst. So obviously he was
I think this is based on his father.
His father?
I read somewhere that his father had struggled also. So it's kind of based on him and his father, Kashmakash.
Kashmakash, and he was 22 or so, running and having these affairs on the side, a troubled man probably, when he had the story of a poet whose talent is rejected by the world, so to speak. And so first thing is, it is so autobiographical and the idea is so personal to him, which is very unique because sometimes filmmakers go on to make movies that are brilliant, but not as personal. And this was obviously the most personal movie. And second is the fortunate luck of Sahil Ludhianvi. He found Sahil Ludhianvi, the poet, whose poetry matched his sentiment and melancholy. And hey, Sahil Ludhianvi, when we did our episode on him, he's a genius in his own right. And he channeled his best talent through Guru Dutt's mechanisms. And obviously that was really built. And the third is S.D. Burman, Geeta Dutt, Rafi, like the Rafi, Hemant, like the combination of the music and the singers that came together.
I know.
Anybody less than these stature of geniuses, the backbone of the movie, the songs would not have held up. So a lot of these things came together brilliantly.
But yeah, Anurag, actually, if you think about it, any one of them would have made the movie still worthwhile. No?
That is true.
Sirf S.D. Burman hi hota.
That is so
sirf Rafi or Geeta hi hota. Ya sirf Sahir hota. Even then, it would have been fantastic. So I mean, we were fortunate to have this combination.
A very unique and rare combination. So that's kind of what made it great, and still it appeals to us and across cultures. People, when it came out, said, "Yeah, theek hai, Indians ke liye theek hai." Just talks about that, but it has actually crossed cultures, and other cultures also appreciate it because of that. Harish ji, we're going to talk about the first song.
Yeah, no. So one or two things. The original movie name was Pyasa.
Okay.
And it got changed to Pyasa. Abrar Alvi, who wrote all the screenplays,
that's right,
had taken this Kashmakash story and do that. Another thing we should mention is that Nargis and Madhubala were the first two people picked for the roles, and they couldn't agree which one to play. Nakhre, Nakhre, Nakhre. And then they took Mala Sinha, Mala Sinha, whom I'm not a big fan of Mala Sinha.
Yeah.
There's so many goddamn movies, yeah. So many good movies.
Exactly right.
सुबह होगी ये वो क्या क्या
Yeah.
धूल का फूल ये है बहुत सारा. Anyway, Wahida Rahman, of course, looks
Major
so
break.
beautiful and so good, and we'll talk about that and so forth. That was also the year we should mention, 1957. I'll mention one or two films which you might recognize. Sunega?
हाँ जी, बोलो.
Mother India, Paying Guest.
Oh, same year.
Same year. दो आंखें बारह हाथ, तुम सा नहीं देखा, शारदा, no, वो चांद जगह वो जाएं तो भी साथ चले जाना, Raj Kapoor, also Mala Sinha, was it Mala Sinha? No, like anyway, Sharda, Asha, Bhabhi, all from 1957. I mean, we could do a whole program on 1957.
The year 1957. Something happened in that year that so many great films have stood the test of time.
No.
Unlike, let's say, 1982, which is like long forgotten, kya hua us saal mein, Bollywood mein, something like that. Like the 25 violent films, that's about it. Anyway, so coming back to the theme. So, aap bataएं, you want to talk about,
okay,
the first song, or you want to talk about it, Jaane Wo Kaise?
Jaane Wo Kaise Log The Jinke Pyar Se Pyar Mila. It's in Rag Bilawal. The second line of the national anthem, Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Maratha, had inspired the line Humko to Humne to Jab Khushiyan Mangi, Maaton Ka Har Mila. So if you sing them, those who know music will find they are the same. It may just be a coincidence. There's the same thing. Anyway, people have found that Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Maratha, which brings us. I have a question. Farooq hai idhar? ये हमारा my Pakistani friend, यार सिंध तो तुम्हारा है, हमारे यहाँ नेशनल एंथम में.
टेक्निकलिटीज पे आप
बात करनी पड़ेगी, ये कि गड़बड़ हो गई. मैं क्या सिंध ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ नेशनल एंथम ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗਾ.
सुनिया कि हैगा हाली भी.
Anyway, so I want to take a little side trip, मेरा program ऐसी क्या बात है. So you should start to think about it. There are thousands, tens of thousands of songs of the same thing. जाने वो कैसे लोग थे जिनके प्यार से प्यार मिला. I mean, I'm sure it's not applicable to any of you guys, but some of us, may have experienced this in life. कि जो last time we talked about, कभी किसी को मुकम्मल जहां नहीं मिलता, and then there are this is a Pakistani poet, and I'll quote a few lines. किसके लिए हैं कलियां, किसके लिए सितारे, किसके लिए हैं कलियां, किसके लिए सितारे, मेरे लिए नहीं है, मेरे लिए नहीं है, किसके लिए है यारो उसके बदन की खुशबू, किसके लिए है यारो उसके बदन की खुशबू, उसके बदन का नगमा, मेरे लिए नहीं है, मेरे लिए नहीं है. So the same sentiment, and if you start thinking about it, tens of thousands of songs like that. Excuse me. In fact, the same year, 1957, S.H. Bihari wrote a song, Hemant Kumar's song, a movie called Hill Station. And look it up. वो खुश नसीब हैं जिनको किसी का प्यार मिला, हमें तो दिल भी मिला, वो भी बेकरार मिला. Beautiful song. Not as good as जाने वो कैसे लोग थे जिनके. But
same sentiment.
Sahil wrote many songs like that. 1956, he had written wonderful song. मैंने चांद और सितारों की तमन्ना की थी. I'm sure most people remember that, right? Unbelievable. It's a very long song. Beautiful lines, मैंने चांद और सितारों की तमन्ना की थी, मुझको रातों की सियाही के सिवा कुछ न मिला. मैं वो नगमा हूँ जिसे प्यार की महफिल न मिली, वो मुसाफिर हूँ जिसे कोई भी मंजिल न मिली, जख्म पाए हैं बहारों की तमन्ना की थी, मैंने चांद और सितारों की तमन्ना की थी. One more thing, sort of related. As I mentioned, this is in Rag Bilawal. For those who know classical music, something very interesting has happened. Bilawal is also a thought and also a rag. There are no compositions in rag Bilawal, no bandish in classical rag Bilawal. There are many in Alhiya Bilawal, which is beautiful, beautiful raga, Alhiya. In fact, those who are interested should look up Onkar Nath Thakur's rendering of Alhiya Bilawal, and then Pandit Jasraj, the same bandish, even better, so forth. And then Odaya, Kahan Gaye, whatever, in Alhiya Bilawal. There is a bandish in Yamini Bilawal or Yamini Bilawal by Bhimsen Joshi, which is one of the 10, 20 best classical pieces ever. Yamini Bilawal by Bhimsen Joshi. Anyway, काफी हो गया तो बोलता ही जाएगा तो कोई गाने कब सुनेंगे यार?
सही मैं बोलने वाला था मगर आप ठीक है. इस सेल्फ कंट्रोल यू हैव टुडे इज अमेजिंग. चलो आगे चलते हैं. सुना गाना सुना. चलो गाने सुनाते हैं. चलो.
ऐसे लोग थे जिनके प्यार को प्यार मिला. हमने तो जब कलियां मांगी कांटों का हार मिला. जाने वो कैसे लोग थे जिनके प्यार को प्यार मिला.
खुशियों की मंजिल ढूंढी तो गम की गर्द मिली. चाहत के नगमे जाते तो आहें सर्द मिली. दिल के बोझ को धूना कर गया जो गम पार मिला. हमने तो जब कलियां मांगी कांटों का हार मिला. जाने वो कैसे लोग थे जिनके प्यार को प्यार मिला.
बिछड़ गया हर साथी देखकर पल दो पल का साथ. बिछड़ गया हर साथी देखकर पल दो पल का साथ. किसको फुर्सत है ये जो थामे दीवाने का हाथ. हमको अपना साया तक अक्सर बेजार मिला. हमने तो जब कलियां मांगी कांटों का हार मिला. जाने वो कैसे लोग थे जिनके प्यार को प्यार मिला.
You've never heard of Aditi Chakrabarti, na?
No, I have not.
Dekho, I mean, so much talent all around, na? This is, we should be grateful that God asked Al Gore to invent the internet. We can discover these things, But to soon, with 360 million people with India started, how much talent would have come and gone, which we never heard about, na? कोई बैठा होगा कोई गांव में कहीं पे गा रहा होगा या ऐसे आदिति जैसा कोई होगा, but there's no way, there's no passage. There was no passage to get to the thing. But anyway, तो आजकल तो हो रहा है. चलो
बिल्कुल ठीक. The talent is being discovered and we have platform for that.
talent है, but music ऐसा नहीं है.
आपने जैसे बता रहे थे, हम बात कर रहे थे कि भाई ये गाने, the sentiment of these songs, sad songs or whatever the genre is gone, right? Today, when was the last 10 years में ऐसा कौन सा गाना आया?
I just remembered a share. It has nothing to do with anything. So, talking about the people, wisdom of the older people and the strength of the younger people. And so, Purani Roshani mein aur nayi mein fark itna hai. Purani Roshani means older people. Purani Roshani mein और नई में फर्क इतना है, उसे कश्ती नहीं मिलती, इसे साहिल नहीं मिलता।
अरे वाह,
पुरानी लोगों के विजडम तो है, दे नो द डायरेक्शन विच वे टू गो, पर मीन्स नहीं है। शरीर में ताकत नहीं है, यू नो, स्ट्रेंथ नहीं, इमोशनल स्ट्रेंथ नहीं है। जवान तैयार हैं पर जाना पता नहीं किधर जाना है। पुरानी रोशनी में और नई में फर्क इतना है, उसे किश्ती नहीं मिलती, इसे साहिल नहीं
मिलता। लवली लवली। तो लेट्स मूव ऑन। इसके बाद वी गोना डू द नेक्स्ट सॉन्ग ऑफ द सेम मूवी, जाने क्या तूने कही,
okay,
which is one of my favorite songs. You want to set it up?
हाँ जी। So it's in Bilawal thought. It's not based on any raga, but the thought is Bilawal, composed as straight sargam. Okay, enough. So there was a song in Fir Subah Hogi. I don't know how many you remember that. Beautiful song, Asha Bhosle and Mukesh. Not Wo Subah Kabhi To Aayegi, but Fir na Kijiye Meri Gustakh Nigahi Ka Gila, Dekhiye Aapne Fir Pyar Se Dekha Mujhko. Sahir wrote that. The same song is used in this film. The two lines is used, sung by Geeta Dutt. And Wahida Rahman is singing that, which supposedly Guru Dutt's character has written. So talk about, you know, circular references. You know, तो जाहिर की अपनी poem जो previous film में आई थी, तो फिर न कीजिए मेरी, तो वो गाती है, so this guy recognizes his own lines and so forth, and that's how the thing starts. So
let's have a look.
मैंने कहा,
जाने क्या तूने कही, जाने क्या मैंने सुनी, बात कुछ बन ही गई, जाने क्या तूने कही। सनसनाहट सी हुई, थरथराहट सी हुई, सनसनाहट सी हुई, थरथराहट सी हुई, जाग उठे ख्वाब कई, बात कुछ बन ही गई, जाने क्या तूने कही, जाने क्या मैंने सुनी, बात कुछ बन ही गई, जाने क्या तूने कही। आज सजन मुझे अंग लगा लो, जन्म सफल हो जाए, हृदय की पीड़ा देह की अग्नि सब शीतल हो जाए, मुझे अपना बना लो, ओ मुझे अपना बना लो, मोरी बाह पकड़ मैं हूँ जन्म जन्म की दासी, मुझे अपना बना लो, मोरी बाह पकड़ मैं हूँ जन्म जन्म की दासी, मोरी प्यास बुझा दो मन हर गिरधर, प्यास बुझा दो मन हर गिरधर, प्यास बुझा दो मन हर गिरधर, मैं हूँ अंतर घट तक प्यासी, प्रेम सुधा मोरी सवारिया, सवरिया, प्रेम सुधा
Beautiful.
This Aaj Sajan is, I think, a kind of typical old Bangla Kirtan tune.
Oh, is that so?
Public किसी को बोलने देगा या?
आप बताएं, people who have comment on this song.
Anybody, you tell me. Anybody wants to say something? Okay. Chalo, next.
Okay, let's keep going. What I wanted to share next was actually, we have been talking about the movie, the songs, the whole thing. What I wanted was to bring a little bit of attention to performances, because unless you see a clip of the actors, it's hard to tell how good the performance is. And we're going to play a very small scene from Pyasa, which is edited by Harish to make it only a very brief scene. And what I liked about this scene, as we were discussing, is that you see, this is a pivotal scene of the movie where Guru Dutt and Waheeda Rahman meet for the first time as character, and she's a street girl, and he's a hungry poet, and so forth. What's important is just notice the clarity of the performances and how simply it is directed, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You start seeing the craft of this genius filmmaker. Let's.
उधार नहीं मिलेगा। ये तो खोटा है। खोटा? हाँ हाँ खोटा है। दूसरा है पास या नहीं? अच्छा तो ये चाल थी। जानबूझकर खोटा रुपया लाए थे। खाना मंगवाकर जो प्लेट झूठी कर दी उसका दाम कौन चुकाएगा? दाम चुकाओ नहीं तो कोर्ट तुम्हें उतार लूंगा। समझे? चुप रहा, ले जाओ प्लेट।
रखो खाना वहीं। ये ले अपने दाम। बाकी के पैसे किसी हज्जाम को दे देना। शक्ल इंसानों जैसी कर देगा तेरी। चल जाए यहाँ से।
आपको मुझ पे तरस खाने का कोई हक नहीं। माफ कीजिएगा, मेरी नाराजगी का बुरा न मानिएगा।
बिल्कुल नहीं, तुम्हें नाराज होना भी चाहिए। उस दिन मैंने बहुत बुरा सलूक किया तुम्हारे साथ।
मुझे आपसे कोई शिकायत नहीं।
तो फिर खाना खा लो। तुम्हें मेरी कसम।
आप अपनी कसम क्यों देती हैं मुझे? आप मुझे ठीक तरह जानती भी तो नहीं।
खूब जानती हूँ।
कैसे?
तुम्हारी नज़्मों और गज़लों से। जब तुम्हारे ख्यालात और जज्बात को जान लिए तो अब जानने को क्या बचा है?
मैं आपको समझ नहीं सका। उस दिन तो आप।
तुम बार बार मुझे आप क्यों कहते हो? कुछ अजीब सा लगता है मुझे।
क्यों?
आज तक लोगों के मुंह से मैं सिर्फ दूतकार ही सुनती रही हूँ अपने लिए। उनकी फिक्रेबाजियाँ और ताने सुनती रही हूँ, गालियाँ सुनती रही हूँ, गंदा मजाक सुनती रही हूँ। और तुम इतनी इज्जत से पेश आते हो मुझसे।
Wonderful performance. Wonderful performance.
This scene is much longer. I edited it, and actually, it could have. I know Indian cinema में बात साफ-साफ बतानी पड़ती है. It was still too much dialogue, in my opinion. Could have been done even briefly. I mean, the essence is that she's touched by his thoughts and his ideals and so forth. So there is. I'm totally going off the subject here. There is. An issue in psychology and social commentary, poetry, novels. What is the moment of when a neutral or no turn into a yes when two people meet? कुछ होता है ना? उसने कुछ कह दिया, and she said something, he said something, he did something. I'll give you an example. A guy standing there in a party mein hai, and a woman is there, young woman is there. He looks at her, choda, kuch nahi. I think she's not a nice person or whatever, he would like to meet somebody. a young boy, a young girl goes to a water fountain. वो होते हैं ना जहाँ बटन दबाना पड़ता है पानी निकलता है. And he's too short. He goes there and he's too short. The woman he's looking at suddenly was talking to somebody, notices that, stops her conversation, goes over to the kid, raises him, and presses the button so he could drink the water. So the guy decides, ye theek hai. I think I want to talk to her. This is a scene from one of my scripts, by the way.
Yeah. I suspected that. आपने इस तरह के कहे छुपे छोटे gems दबा के रखे हुए हैं. We'll have a show on that someday.
Yeah. So you don't need a whole lot of dialogue. You know, कि छोटी सी एक जरा सा incident करके. Have you seen मैं मेरी बीवी और वो?
मैं मेरी बीवी और वो. Doesn't ring a bell.
Oh my God. Oh, so we have to talk. Someday I'll show scenes from it. It's a short guy, very tigna sa mere jaisa, आदमी है. उसकी शादी किसी का रिश्ता आया है बरेली से या कहाँ पे, I don't know. And they go there in a bus. लड़के से मिलते हैं. She's tall, she's beautiful, she's educated. मर गया वो कहाँ वो छोटा सा है, is not very good and so forth. पर वो जैसे आजकल होता है ना कि इन दोनों को बात करने दो. तो पेरेंट्स है कि जा इनको बात करने दो. अब क्या बात करेंगे, वेरी ऑकवर्ड. आपको खाना वो पूछती है उससे कि आपको खाना बनाना आता है, तो बोलता है हाँ मैं बना लेता हूँ, पर मेरे से रोटी गोल नहीं बनती. तो सो फोर्थ. एंड देन उसको बोलते हैं कि आपकी चाय ठंडी हो रही है, तो पीना शुरू करता है. कहता है कि देखिए मुझे चाय ठंडी ही पसंद है वगैरह. एनीवे सडनली दे स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट जयशंकर प्रसाद or Mahadevi Verma, I forget, one of the great authors and so forth. And and they say the same thing all of a sudden, कि उसके होते तो हमको क्या, whatever. And suddenly there's a huge connection. कुछ नहीं बन रहा,
Exactly right.
लंबी है, वो छोटा टिकना है, वो खूबसूरत है. But वो literature के ऊपर, they are absolutely the same thoughts.
Very, very hard thing to pull off as a filmmaker.
It's such a heartwarming, such a touching scene. I mean, you cry, oh my God, connection ho gaya and so forth. And you have that in life every once in a while.
Of course.
And it doesn't have to be literature, it could be sports, it could be anything. You meet somebody, anyway, choro.
So we're going to now go to the piece of the most popular, most famous, most important. Thank you, Lalita. Main Meri Patni Aur Wo. That's the movie. Right. So we're going to go to obviously the most famous part of Pyasa. These are set of poetry that is at the climax of the movie, sung by, of course, written by, of course, Sahir and sung by Rafi. So let's listen to it and then we'll talk about it. We have discussed this at quite some length in a different episode, but we'll touch a little bit about why this is such a powerful, revolutionary set of ideas.
तंगा चुके हैं कशमकशे जिंदगी से हम ठुकरा न दें जहां को कहीं बेदिली
जनाब खुशी के मौके पर क्या बेदिली का राग छेड़ा हुआ है, कोई खुशी का गीत सुनाइए.
हम गमज़दा हैं लाए कहाँ से खुशी के गीत, कहाँ से खुशी के गीत, देंगे वही जो पाएंगे इस जिंदगी से हम, देंगे वही जो पाएंगे इस जिंदगी से हम. लो आज हमने तोड़ दिया, लो आज हमने तोड़ दिया रिश्ता-ए उम्मीद, रिश्ता-ए उम्मीद. लो अब कभी गिला न करेंगे किसी से हम. ये महलों ये तख्तों ये ताजों की दुनिया, ये इंसान के दुश्मन समाजों की दुनिया ये दौलत के भूखे रवाजों की दुनिया ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है हर एक जिस्म घायल हर एक रूह प्यासी निगाहों में उलझन दिलों में उदासी ये दुनिया है या आलम बद हवासी ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है ये दुनिया यहाँ पीर भी आ चुके हैं जवां भी तनोमंद बेटे भी अब्बा मियाँ भी ये बीवी भी है ये बीवी भी है और बहन भी है माँ भी जिन्हें नाज है हिंद पर वो कहाँ मदद चाहती है ये हवा की बेटी यशोदा की हम जिन्स राधा की बेटी पैगंबर की उम्मत जुलेखा की बेटी जिन्हें नाज है हिंद पर वो कहाँ है कहाँ है कहाँ है कहाँ
Beautiful. The last song particularly, I think, is in the genre of protest songs. And I think mainstream cinema ke andar ye what a rare milestone, because I think in most of the commercial cinema since then, there haven't been as many famous, powerful, revolutionary protest songs like the last one we heard. And I always like to remember that in 2008, Rabi Shergill did a version of this, which is, if you find it on, we can link it in the YouTube or later. It's it's a reprise of the same song. Bahut badhiya hai. Anyway, so we've covered Pyasa. Let's move on to Kaagaz Ke Phool. Kya khayal hai? Chale? So Pyasa was a milestone movie. And after that, the commercial success and other success for Guru Dutt, he wanted to make what he thought would be his magnum opus after Pyasa. And Kaagaz Ke Phool started out with a lot of bang because it was the first CinemaScope movie to be made of its time. And it was very interesting because the technical revolution, the cinematography of the movie is phenomenal. We'll talk a little bit about it when we do a clip of the song. And apparently it was inspired from Star is Born, Judy Garland. I can't speak to that. While it was a complete commercial failure, we'll talk about that also why, but it's become a cult classic. Invariably over the years, people find it and say that this is okay, right after Pyasa, this is still a good movie, etc. The story very simply is about a filmmaker whose life unravels because of his marriage issues, etc. And his daughter suffers from it, and he's like attracted to his heroine, and the heroine actually doesn't reciprocate well. He becomes a self-pitying alcoholic, and at the end spurns the heroine whom he helped and eventually dies. The story is very sad, and to some degree, somebody said it's a self-indulgent angst of a privileged man. And back in the 50s, when people literally were dying because of hunger in India, this was not a story that they would say, Acha, he's a famous director, itni hi rone ki kya baat hai, right? So people didn't quite see the connect to the story. And by some critics later on, they think it's one of his top movies, but I personally don't think so. It's a good movie. Aapki kya raay hai is pe, Harish ji, about Kaagaz Ke Phool?
So one thing which immediately everybody remembers, Prem, I remember right away, one song which we will come to and you will explain why. The photography was fantastic, right? No light aa rahi hai studio mein aur kya hai, even all the black and white photographs. So there is a saying in the film business, that when people come out of a movie and the first thing they talk about is photography, is going to be a bad movie. Because you should not be remembering the photography of a movie, the first thing. So whenever I go to a movie and I say, kya photography, then I say, realize ki aur kuch nahi. Something did not satisfy enough. So I'll tell you another joke. So when the sound in a film is very good, and sound people tell you this. When the sound the film is very good, people come out and say, yaar, photography bahut achhi thi. Because nobody thinks of sound design. Who?
Exactly.
Except for people like you and me who make movies, who kaun dhyan deta hai sound design par. But it makes the photography look better. Anyway, that's aside. So
the only exception to that, by the way, is horror movies. Usme sound hai. Usme the you can almost tell ki abhi haath aaya piche se. You can almost tell exactly when it's going to come.
Yeah. So it's technically better than Pyasa, but it was not a success. So why was it not a success? So that takes us back to 2000 years. Plato and then Aristotle wrote books called Poetics, Poetics. Us zamane mein, all the dramas and all, instead of movies, before movies, there used to be plays and they were in poetry. And they laid down rules of a successful, good drama. Here are the 3 rules which Aristotle put down. And when I give my lectures in classes in China, by the way, I've been doing that, I add a 4th one. Number 1, who's the protagonist? Kiski kahani hai? Number 2, and this is where Kaagaz Ke Phool failed. Number 1, who's the protagonist? Number 2, what does he or she want? And we were not clear. What the hell, except ki dekho meri taraf, main to ro raha hoon. What did he want? I mean, he should want to climb Mount Everest, or you are sick, you want to be able to go out, you want somebody's love, you want money, you want whatever, anything very, very small to something, want to be the king of the world, whatever. What does the protagonist want? Should be very clear. Number 3, most important. What are the obstacles preventing the protagonist from getting his or her thing? The bigger the obstacle, the better the movie. अब मेरे जैसा obstacle हो तो कोई वो थप्पड़ मार के चला जाएगा तो ठीक है कोई बात नहीं हो गया मामला. But if Darth Vader is in your way, then you
Mogambo.
have big problem.
In Indian cinema, Mogambo is the obstacle.
Yeah, Mogambo is there. So the bigger the villain, the bigger the problem, the bigger the obstacle. You have to fight the CIA, you have to fight the government, you fight, whatever, terrorism and so forth. The better the movie. So these are the 3 rules which Aristotle wrote down years and years ago. And the 4th one, which I add, which people add these days, is why the hell should I care?
Yeah, that's right.
Mujhe itna kaam hai, I have things to do, I have children, grandchildren to take care of, and
football games to watch.
Football games. He's making fun of me. I went to bed at 7:30 in the morning today because I was watching soccer, world soccer, Japan.
He has many defects like that. Oh,
Japan. So I slept for only 3 hours. And this is why I'm so punchy, I haven't had breakfast yet. So the Kaagaz Ke Phool failed on these things,
That's right.
It was primarily a kind of autobiographical movie. S.D. Burman told Guru Dutt ki mat banao. Don't do this self-indulgence, to apni ro raha hai, self-pitying kind of thing. Don't do it. He said, nahi, to banani hai. Anyway, so he gave the music and then he stopped. He said, I'm not going to work with you anymore.
And it didn't.
He told him it was going to be a flop, and it wasn't.
So let's watch the first song, which I think you talk a little bit about Waqt Mein Kiya, because whatever the movie is, the songs are going to outlast Not many people will watch Kaagaz Ke Phool end to end.
So let me tell you a story on it. Okay, so the story, this song was not in the film in the beginning. There were only 4 or 5 songs which were already written. Kaifi Azmi wrote them, S.D. Burman made the music, everything was good. And they were sitting around, Guru Dutt, S.D. Burman, Kaifi Azmi, baate kar rahe the, everything is done and so forth. And chai wai pi rahe the, S.D. Burman gungunana shuru kar diya. Pagal music, log pagal hote hain, teri aise, meri aise, karna shuru kar diya. It's a very Indian thing to burst out into a song.
That's true.
और लोग नहीं करते. बेवकूफी और लोग नहीं करते. Indians break out in a song just like that.
Sitting with strangers in a train, थोड़ा गा लेते हैं चल.
But तुझे her story. So once I was
come back to this story. या आपका तो इतने सारे open thread करोगे तो close कैसे करेंगे?
तो जल्दी करते हैं. So I once was traveling to India, and this Indian official, he must be sitting next to me. And बातें मैंने शुरू कर दी. हेलो जी, क्या है वो है. तो मैंने कहा आप क्या करते हैं? मैंने कहा among other things I do a radio program. He says I like to sing. अरे मैंने कहा बड़ी अच्छी बात है. And he started singing in the fucking plane. He started singing. और इतनी गंदी आवाज, I mean very very mediocre, अब naturally I can't say कि क्या बेवकूफ बंद कर. Naturally मैं कहा ठीक है. तो वो ड्रिंक विंक लाए. उसने बेवकूफ ने साले ने गाना छोड़ना ही नहीं था. वो गाता ही रहा एक के बाद एक. मुझे वो याद है shit, खाने में भी, डिनर में भी. Eventually I said, मुझे नींद आई है, तबीयत. Oh my God!
एक गोली आप उसको देते अपने आप को गोली से. You should have given him more drink to pass out.
He's trapped in a plane, and what can you do? I mean, how can you tell him?
All our
anyway,
strengths as Desis can be.
However, when S.D. Burman started gungunana,
you listen.
ये तो मजाक की बात नहीं है. And Guru Dutt listens to it. इससे कि दादा ये तो बड़ी अच्छी ट्यून है. अनेक ट्यून है, वो गाना वाना कोई नहीं है. So they looked at Kaifi Azmi. Kaifi Azmi, famous poet, he wasn't given songs to write words to. He wrote the songs like Sahir, and he composed the music on it. Kaifi Azmi कहा कि ठीक है, मैं क्या करूँगा? How is he going to say no to Guru Dutt and so forth? All of a sudden, a 5th song has to be made. So Kaifi Azmi goes and rose the mukhra of the song, वक्त ने क्या तुम रहे ना तुम, which is their story.
Yeah,
Gita Dutt's story, which is everybody's story in the movie, all the real characters. And then the stanzas he wrote were terrible. And he tried second, बोलते 10 बार लिखा, 11 बार लिखा. Eventually they gave up. And Guru Dutt, चलो छोड़ो, रहने दो, नहीं होगा, कोई बात नहीं. We'll try it in another film some other day and so forth. Kaifi Azmi took that as an insult and as a defeat. And he went and just at the last minute he wrote the words which you sang and so forth.
Let's listen to it.
क्या हंसी सितम, तुम रहे न तुम, हम रहे न हम, वक्त ने किया.
बेकरार दिल इस तरह मिले जैसे कभी हम जुदा न थे. बेकरार दिल इस तरह मिले जैसे कभी हम जुदा न थे. तुम भी खो चल के दो.
जाएंगे कहाँ सूझता नहीं,
Beautiful song. Beautiful song.
So everybody jumped in. Shri,
the famous cinematography of this movie was basically when Guru Dutt was so obsessed with getting the cinematography right that he actually had a hole punched in the studio of Mehboob Studios so that the right light could come in and mirrors and all.
Say that again. The light in the studio?
Light in the studio that he wanted, that special effect of this song. He had the hole punched in the ceiling so the natural light would come in.
Mehboob Studio.
Okay. And people were saying, kya kar raha hai, kya kar raha hai? And he had talked to Mehboob and Mehboob said, let it be. He knows what he's doing. And then they had mirrors and sunlight and all this technical things to have this ethereal effect of this particular one. Anyway, so let's move on to the.
We should mention it's considered there was they took a poll of the music composers, singers, vagara, lyricists, the best songs. It was like 2006 or some, right? And is among the 20 best Hindi film songs ever.
That's right. And
by the poets and musicians.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So there's another beautiful song over here, and we're going to talk about Dekhi Zamane Ki Yari. Should we listen to it, or you want to mention something about it?
Dikha do. Both. You're talking too much now.
मैं देख रहा था. I'll have to stop the.
अब दुनिया से आंसू के सिवा कुछ पास नहीं आ फूल ही फूल थे दामन में या कांटों की भी आस नहीं मतलब की दुनिया है सारी बिछड़े सभी बारी बारी अरे देखी ज़माने की यारी बिछड़े सभी बारी बारी उड़ जा प्यासे भंवरे रस न मिलेगा खारों में कागज के फूल जहाँ खिलते हैं बैठ न उन गुलजारों में नादान तमन्ना रेती में उम्मीद की कश्ती खेती है एक हाथ से देती है दुनिया तो हाथों से ले लेती है ये खेल है कब से जारी बिछड़े सभी बिछड़े.
Beautiful. So let's move on to let's move on to the next chapter of Guru Dutt. He was devastated by the flop of this movie. In fact, this was the last movie on which he put his name as a director. All the subsequent movies he produced and practically even directed it behind the scene possibly, but his name was never as a director. He lost that confidence, call it, or he self-censored it. He could have if he wanted to. And of course, many of his like Abrar and others who were screenplay writers went on to become directors. And he recovered from the commercial failure of this movie quite well. But this weighed on him for a long time. We're going to talk about any questions or comments from folks. Okay, any man who makes Wahida run after him is foolish. See, the कितने सारे defect नजर आ रहे हैं movie के अंदर सबको. ये बात है. So now let's turn to.
I have a comment.
बिल्कुल जी, हाँ
and
जी.
I think this is
गीतिका
related
जी,
to.
बताइए.
Good morning. This is related to some of the descriptions you have created, but also your comment about how the 1950s was a particularly fruitful time, not just for Bollywood, but also for world cinema. So we have seen some wonderful auteurs at that time. And, given that there was perhaps not as much cross-fertilization, but certainly there was, homage and admiration for filmmakers who were doing important work. I think we see many filmmakers even trying this kind of slightly arty film, or that, the comment that kind of regular person says, ki kuch khushi ki baat karo, har wakat rote rehte ho. And that has been said about, commercial versus art film, that art films are too boring, too heavy. So I just wanted to say that there is particular, like a confluence or a renaissance during the 50s, which is reflected also in Indian film. Thank you. I'm really enjoying this. Thank you so much.
So good. Thank you, Geetika. She teaches film. So very, very knowledgeable about this. Thank you so much for your comments on this.
Not as knowledgeable, apparently, as many of the extremely well-versed hosts here. Thank you.
And in an interview, I'm just going to read from the comment by Satya that the DP, VK Murthy, explained how they struggled to get the famous light beam. Studio boy was carrying a mirror across the ceiling, which threw the beam and gave them the inspiration to set it up and so forth. So,
which was directly from Citizen Kane. You know this, right?
Course,
Citizen Kane had that beam, and
very famous,
very much a kind of homage.
बिल्कुल ठीक, बिल्कुल ठीक. So let's move on. Chaudhwi Ka Chand. Chaudhwi Ka Chand was the next movie. It was a huge commercial success. The movie itself is actually what is called Muslim social cinema of that time. Very popular. The story is actually fairly banal. It's about, the two friends, one gets married, the other one had been in love with his wife before, and there's a misunderstanding. And it's a whole story of superficial misunderstanding. And the movie is, I would say, from a story point of view, plot point of view, not much of a movie to remember by. The way I describe the movie for me is that it's basically Guru Dutt's homage to Wahida Rahman. Wahida Rahman looks loveliest in her career in this movie. And you can almost see in every scene, every movie clip, where Guru Dutt is saying, "Arey dekhiye, kya khoobsurati hai." So I think when people later on say, did they have an affair, did they not? Who cares and who can contest that? But definitely this is a public display of the wonderful performance and beauty of Wahida Rahman. I have a theory on that. आपको बता दें हरीश जी, my theory of female Indian heroines, Indian star heroines.
कौन रोक सकता है आपको?
सही बात है. So I have this long-standing theory, and this theory, by the way, only applies from 1940s to 1990s. After 1990s, when the internet came, all bets are off, right? So it doesn't apply to modern times of last 30 years. But the theory is that if you wanted to be a top star of the people millions covet in India, you had to have a certain characteristics as a heroine, and those were Nakhrewali and Gharwali, both combined in the same woman. It had to be someone who could be so gorgeous. And by the way, those days, physical beauty largely was on the face, because it wasn't like they were revealing costumes, etc., etc.
Nakhrewali or Sharmane wali.
Exactly. So you could flirt and you could be coy, and you had to have that right combination for you to be a star. And that was, Madhubala had it. I think Vajanti Mala, for example, in my humble opinion, did not. Like, clearly Wahida had it, Meena Kumari quite not, right? And then later on, Mumtaz had it in my mind, and Hema Malini not quite. These were all successful heroines. Who am I to argue with their success and their fame and their beauty? But this is my humble theory of what were the heroines of that time that stood apart. And it's something what the French say, je ne sais quoi, exactly, not quite decomposable quality, but there you have it.
And
आपका क्या ख्याल है मेरी इस theory के ऊपर?
The only other thing I'll say is that surprisingly, the physical fitness of heroes and heroines didn't seem to matter in those days.
That's true.
You know?
That's true.
I
That's
mean,
true.
look at all all of them.
That's
you
right.
know, they all could go to the gym.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
from Raj Kapoor to Shami Kapoor to
That's right.
to the Asha Parekh to everybody
right.
else and so forth. आजकल तो देख के हालत खराब ही आती है. They're so fit, you know, unbelievable.
right.
You know,
Quite
but
right.
But the face mattered. The
Yeah.
expressions mattered
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yeah.
But anyway, छोड़ो, both.
Let's go and see beautiful clip from चौदहवीं का चांद.
चौदहवीं का चांद हो या आफताब हो, जो भी हो तुम खुदा की कसम लाजवाब हो. चौदहवीं का चांद हो. जैसे कांधों पे बादल झुके हुए, आंखें हैं जैसे मैं के प्याले भरे हुए. मस्ती है जिसमें प्यार की तुम वो शराब हो. चौदहवीं का चांद हो. मुझे रास्ता दिखा कर मेरे कारवां को लूटा, इधर गले लगा लूं तुझे गर्दिशे जमाना. मिली खाक में मोहब्बत, जला दिल का आशियाना. जो थी आज तक हकीकत, वही बन गई फसाना.
बदले बदले मेरे सरकार नजर आते हैं, घर की बर्बादी के आसार नजर आते हैं. बदले बदले मेरे प्यार में तो शाम सहर, मेरे चेहरे से न हटती थी कभी दिल की नजर. मेरी सूरत से वो बेजार नजर आते हैं, मेरी सूरत से वो बेजार नजर आते हैं. घर की बर्बादी के आसार नजर आते हैं. बदले बदले.
Beautiful.
So I was, I think, 15, 16 years old. My father, who went to see the movie, you know, he wasn't a big fan of movies, went to see the movie, came back and told me it wasn't for me. I should not be seeing it. Not allowed.
Because of?
वो किसी से प्यार हो रहा है, अफेयर हो रहा है, क्या हो रहा है, कोई किसी के ऊपर फिदा हो रहा है. I'm too innocent. I should not be allowed to see these corrupt things. What he didn't know was that I had already seen the movie. He thought I had gone to play hockey and I had actually had played hockey instead.
ठीक है, होनहार बिरबान के.
So I don't, except for the only thing I remember is that songs were very good. Wahida looked absolutely fantastic. And the movie ends, and this is an amazing, मुझे अभी याद आया. I think I've seen it only once. That was in 61, So it ends with a rubai, and which is not very good, but I just remembered it, let me see. सुनते हैं कोई मौत का मेहमान हुआ है, परवाना कोई शम्मा पे कुर्बान हुआ है, वो कौन था जो मिट गया, इंसान की खातिर इंसान था, इंसान से भगवान हुआ है.
Yeah, the climax of the movie was also rather weak because one of the characters commits suicide for the sake of like. Anyway, let's move on because we need to move on to Sahab Bibi Gulam, which I think was obviously much better movie than Chaudhary Ka Chand, and also was a huge commercial success. And what's interesting is that, of course, based on a Bengali novel called Sahab Bibi Gulam. And in fact, I think a Bengali version was made of the movie before Guru Dutt decided, or was it a stage play? One of the two, I think. It's a story of a lonely wife, and the story set in 19th century Zamindar, and lonely wife who takes to drinking to entice her Zamindar husband, errant Zamindar husband. What's interesting about this was that obviously Meena Kumari's career-forming role, like she did phenomenally well in this role as a woman whose husband doesn't love her and she takes to drinking. Wahida Rahman, who was at the prime, of course, wanted to do this role. That's the story around her. And she actually went so far as to say, and she was a top star after all these movies, and Guru Dutt was the producer, and she went and said, "Main karungi," and they tried to persuade her, and they didn't want to. So what Guru Dutt said was that, you're younger, you can't, people will not believe that your husband doesn't love you. You're so beautiful and famous that it's not going to come through. And he asked the DP to do a photograph and a screen test, and they did. And when Wahida Rahman saw her own screen test and the photographs as dressed up as sad, lonely wife, she herself said, "Theek hai, I don't think I'll be convincing with the role." And then Guru Dutt thought that was the end of that, but she said, "I would like to play the supporting actress role," which at that time people advised her that you're a top star, and why would you play second fiddle to Meena Kumari? And to Wahida's credit, she said, "No, the role is very interesting, and I'm going to do it." And she is actually fairly introspective and confident actor, so she ended up doing it. And she got kudos for her supporting role, although it was not as powerful as Meena Kumari's role, etc. So it's an interesting movie. Anything you want to add to that, Harish?
The Guru Dutt himself was, in the film as Bhootnath. Shashi Kapoor was supposed to do that, and somehow that didn't work out. It happens a lot in film, casting and all that stuff. And by that time, and if we have time, we'll come to that. Geeta was having very upset with Guru Dutt for running around with Wahida Rahman. So she refused to sing Wahida songs. She sang for Meena Kumari. She refused to sing for Wahida songs. So Asha Bhosle sang Meri Baat Rahi Mere Man Mein, Bhamra Bada Nadan Re. All the songs were sung by Asha Bhosle. So
wonderful. And the only story I know, whether true or not, is Shashi Kapoor got rejected because he came to his screen test like 2.5 hours late or something for a meeting with Guru Dutt, and Guru Dutt said, "Bhagja." This is how it used to be, right? Missed opportunity. Let's listen to the song.
ये बिखरी जुल्फें खिलता ना जाने दूंगी, जाने ना दूंगी, ना जाओ सैया पिया सो दिया में समाए गयो रे कि मैं तन मन की सुध बुध गवा बैठी हर आहट पे समझ आए गया रे हर आहट पे समझ आए गया रे झट घूंघट में मुखड़ा छुपा बैठी पिया सो दिया में समाए गयो रे में जब तुझे भैया चली मेरे द्वारे थी खुल गई दीवारियां में जब तुझे भैया चली मेरे द्वारे थी खुल गई दीवारियां दुआ द्वारे थी खुल गई दीवारियां मैंने जाना कि आ गए सावरिया मोरे मैंने जाना कि आ गए सावरिया मोरे झट फूलन की सजिया पे जा बैठी पिया सो दिया में
Beautiful.
So I couldn't tell the first two songs, but the third one is a touch of Brindavani Saran. I'm sure you were dying to know that, Anurag.
My knowledge is enhanced by every day by you, Harish ji. हमें तो कान में सुर नहीं पता लगते हैं और आपको तो इतने बड़े you know all that. So
Anyway, we are
Can
running
I
late.
say? Can I
yes,
say
please,
something?
Please,
of course.
I forgot the most wonderful song in this. Sakhiya aaj mujhe, that song. You know, I love that song.
Actually,
And I
we had
think
it.
they have said that that song is one of the best compositions that have been put together for a chorus. So
chorus,
it's a
okay, interesting.
masterpiece. Yes,
In
yes.
fact, we had it. We cut it out because the program was running too long.
Oh my,
Yeah.
that's my
And then
favorite. All
we
of them are beautiful, but that's just
Yeah, and we put it in the beginning and the introduction of the program in the first minute, you know, background mein song tha wo. Sakhiya aaj mujhe neend nahi suna hai teri. Wonderful,
mehfil mein
wonderful.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
wonderful.
beautiful song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think sir, just to add
Yes.
one comment on that song, sir.
Yes, yes, of
if
course.
you notice the picturization of that song, you will find that you know the only Neenu Mintas's face is lit up in that song. The rest of the dancers, you can't see their faces. They're always in the dark.
Right.
So in one interaction with Mr. Murthy sir, we had kind of asked him, you know, how he kind of got this idea and why he did it this way. He I don't know whether it was joke or what. He said the rest of the girls were so ugly, so he didn't want to throw them in the light. But it was a very, very well picturized song.
Yeah.
Indeed. Satya, thank you for your comments. You are very knowledgeable about some of this DP and other things. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge Guru Dutt fan. Yes,
of course. Thank you for joining. So we are running a little late, but that doesn't stop us. So we will now move to some later part. Let's talk about like his life now, because this was his major last film. He did a couple of other ones, which we don't have time to go into right now. We'll talk about, like, you know, the melancholic man, what happened and why he struggled with his life and affairs. You want to set us up for that a little bit, Harish ji?
Well, there is, so take hours and hours to discuss. There's so much literature about this thing. Artists are often portrayed, you know, unfortunately, you know, I don't have long hair, nito main bhi lambe baal, थैला लेके पेड़ के नीचे बैठ के गाने गाता ना, as an artist, as a poet, as a filmmaker वगैरह. But there is this, we'll briefly touch on this thing. There's this concept called Gham-e-Hasti. Gham-e-Hasti. The sorrow of being. Yeah. Now, so the theory goes that if everything is neutral in life, and there's a mean line, happiness and joy, positive and negative on this side, the general status general mood of human beings is slightly below the norm. And the reasons philosophers give are two, they think. Number one is the guarantee of death. Whatever happens, however much money you make and famous you are and beautiful and lovely you are going to die. And that knowledge, subconsciously or consciously, always there, and especially with thinking people, is always there. And people you have lost in your life, people you have loved, you have lost in your life. And that pain, however much you recover, is always there, right? You cannot overcome that completely because you cannot overcome death and so forth. Somebody else, gets even more complicated, says that when childbirth is so painful that you were floating in this fluid and you were beautiful, you didn't have to do anything, you were being fed and everything is taken care of, and you come out and you look at this world and you start crying, except for Punjabi boys, which we talked about in a previous episode.
They come out laughing, huh?
So there is crying, aate bhi, jate bhi, all that stuff. So they say there is this thing, and then the theory is that the more knowledge, I think Vivekanand said that the smarter you are, the wiser you are, more your share of sorrow. The more you know about the world, he said, the bigger is your share of sorrow. Stupid people are happy, which is why I'm always happy.
So this can go into a lot of directions. We can talk a lot, but इस theory को आप apply करेंगे गुरु दत्त के साथ क्या हुआ?
So we think we give him the benefit of the doubt कि being an artist, being sensitive and being knowledgeable poet, being a poet, you're generally aware of the human condition and aware of the tragedies which life brings you, and therefore he had this inherent sadness which he had. And
so did he have an affair with Wahida?
अब हमने photos नहीं लिए, but she doesn't acknowledge it as far as I know. Yeah. However, it's generally believed. And it doesn't matter. He was in love with her. That
it is true. It is true that he was separated from his wife, and they had after 4 years
fights and so forth.
So obviously he was not in a happy personal situation. And then while he had a huge setback on the financial terms, he had recovered quite nicely financially. But he was a heavy drinker and took a lot of sleeping pills all the time. So depends on the theory that he was. And he had a couple of suicide attempts. So he, in today's, leaving aside the philosophical thing, you could say he was bipolar. Who knows what today's modern psychology would say.
He would fall in love with everybody. I mean, somebody said that about Sahir, actually. कि ये ऐसे लोग हैं कि जो हर एक खूबसूरत लड़की के ऊपर फिदा हो जाते हैं. That sounds like me, but anyway. But the thing is, there is an issue of how times have changed.
Yeah.
It's much easier to have an affair. The chances are more. Communication is easier. Texting हो सकती है. ये है वो. उस ज़माने में, even if you wanted to meet, तो बड़ी मुश्किल कहाँ घर से निकलना मिलना लोग पहचान जाएंगे. So I mean, there are stories of why Raj Kapoor used to take so many trips overseas with his actresses. That's what. No proof, but कहते थे कि वो बर्लिन चला गया और रशिया चला गया, यहाँ चला गया, बार, because इतनी नजरें नहीं पड़ रही, you wherever you are and so forth. So who knows? But perhaps he wouldn't be so sad if he could meet whoever he wanted to meet as often those days, as opposed to now, which you can meet everybody and ruin everybody's life simultaneously,
in public with all the influences around you. But aisa karte, let's talk about Geeta Dutt.
Yeah,
what a beautiful.
It won't be complete without talking about.
So Geeta Dutt ko kabhi baat karenge separately. She deserves such as a talented artist and all that. Geeta Dutt ke jo gaane hain, obviously she's like in the shadow of Lata and Asha, etc. But she stood her own, and uske jo my favorite songs, I'll tell you a few. My favorite songs are from Anubhav, Kanu Roy. The 3 songs that she sang, like Jaan mujhe jaana kaho, meri jaan, and then Mera dil jo mera hota, and Koi chupke se aake. These 3 just, the combination of these 3 I think they're set apart. Although obviously Anubhav came much later, and she got her fame from Guru Dutt songs and before. But to me, that's but what's your favorite?
And these were, the thing is that these were done after Guru Dutt's death, and she was not getting any work at that time. She was very depressed, and of course, she died of supposed suicide or liver problems and so. So my favorite Geeta Dutt songs would be, I mean, Adil Mujhe Bata De is very famous. Kis pe aa gaya hai. But two favorite would be, number one, Aaj Ki Kali Ghata. Kafi Azmi, Kanu Rai's music, movie Uski Kahani, which was a big failure. Can't find any clips of it.
Really?
But the song, song is very long, unfortunately. But just the first stanza is heart wrenching. You know, so well sung. To sunna kabhi, if you haven't heard it, listen.
We'll add it to the list.
Aaj ki kali ghata, mast matwali ghata, mujhse कहती है कि प्यासा है कोई, कौन प्यासा है, मुझे क्या मालूम. But this song is beautifully composed and so forth. But the most favorite Geeta Dutt, I don't know how many would remember this, from a movie called Badma. Indibar wrote that. Timur Barun, गाना था आया तूफान कैसे कोई जिए जहर है जिंदगी and all the stuff, you know. But the one I like most, best Geeta Dutt song, you're sitting down, तैयार है?
मैं तो सुना भी नहीं है. I don't references.
हर रोज कहा, हर रोज सुना, एक बात न पूरी हो पाई. हर रोज कहा, हर रोज सुना, एक बात न पूरी हो पाई. दिल दे भी चुके, दिल ले भी चुके, सौगात न पूरी हो पाई. And I'll quote one stanza. उठती ही रही सागर में लहर, उठती ही रही सागर में लहर, उत्पन्न न हुई चाहत दिल की. पाकर के तुम्हें ये दिल न भरा, पाकर के तुम्हें ये दिल न भरा, कुछ और बड़ी हसरत दिल की. शहनाई बजी और रात चढ़ी, बारात न पूरी हो पाई. हर रोज कहा, हर रोज सुना.
Lovely. I'd never heard of it.
Available online,
you know,
somewhere.
Secret vault of Geeta Dutt songs you have. We will have to add a clip or audio clip at least to that.
So I remember something. Javed Akhtar, talking about Sahir, whom he knew very well, said कि जब साहिब साहब को subject matter के ऊपर और बातें याद नहीं आती थी, then he resorted to quoting nature. I don't think he meant it as an insult. You know, you think
not at all. No, Javed would never do that. And also Javed himself uses it all the time. So
but you know, use of nature is so prevalent in everything. Right. You know, I mean, Sahir, like which Sahir, and you know the song from Railway Platform, Chand Madhyam hai, a rare song hai. So Railway Platform, Sahir, I mean, an example of how to connect totally unconnected things of nature and your emotion.
Yes.
चांद मध्यम है, आसमां चुप है. चांद मध्यम है, आसमां चुप है. नींद की गोद में जहां चुप है. अब सुनो. दूर वादी पे दूधिया बादल, दूर वादी में दूधिया बादल झुक के पर्वत को प्यार करते हैं. दिल में नाकाम हसरतें लेकर हम तेरा इंतजार करते हैं. There is no connection, but he makes a connection. And I find that very beautiful. Of course, everybody has done that. You know, nature, poetry is so daffodils kar le,
yeah. How you go?
Where else, you know, so forth. Tagore in Gitanjali, I think it's the 5th, 6th poem, which ends with, I remember this because I read it when I was very, very young, and I couldn't understand why it affected me and what's the bloody connection. So he says something like, the summer has come at my window. You know, it's sighing and murmuring, and the bees are bhamre bhurmara rahe hain. Bees are buzzing about the flowers and so forth, you know. On this quiet day, I will sing songs of surrender. मैं इस नीरव अवसर पर आत्मसमर्पण के गीत गाऊंगा.
That's right. So Tagore, आपने एक बहुत बड़ी किताब खोल दी है. Tagore पे तो we can do a lot more, and some of his English translations are also beautiful, not just. So let's come back to Guru Dutt and round off. I think in terms of the time, we are well over. I was going to propose that we will close with a beautiful tribute from Cafe Azmi, because we've had 2 hours now. So our last piece might be how to set it up.
Yeah. So two things. Naushad, who was also a poet, I think he wrote this sher. Everybody paid tribute to Guru Dutt when he died. I don't know if Naushad wrote this or he is quoting it. Tabibon se main kya puchu? Tabib means doctor, charagar, physician, masiha. Tabibon se main kya puchun ilaje dard dil apna. He's talking about Guru Dutt. तबीबों से मैं क्या पूछूं इलाजे दर्द दिल अपना मरज जब जिंदगी खुद हो तो फिर उसकी दवा क्या है. Beautiful stuff. Cafe Azmi, luckily we have a video.
So
he wrote a poem.
Yes. So we're going to do two things to wrap up.
We will end it. So we will play the 4-minute video of Cafe Azmi paying tribute to Guru Dutt, very unique clip, beautiful thoughts. And then if you still want to hang out, we will just play a very famous song, which we did not get to play, Bhamra Bada Nadan. And that's about it, right? Okay. And meanwhile, we want to thank you. This is the last comments. We have overextended our welcome today. Those who are still with us, you take so many side trips to bolta
I know. I have to be more disciplined about staying on the track. So I know, but Punjabi hai kya kare. So let's go back and we will just close out with these 2 sessions. Enjoy the 2 back-to-back clips.
रहने को सदा दहर में आता नहीं कोई, तुम जैसे गए ऐसे भी जाता नहीं कोई. एक बार तो खुद मौत भी घबरा गई होगी, यूं मौत को सीने से लगाता नहीं कोई. डरता हूं कहीं खुश्क न हो जाए समंदर, राख अपनी कभी आप बहाता नहीं कोई. साकी से गिला था तुम्हें मैं खाने से शिकवा, अब जहर से भी प्यास बुझाता नहीं कोई. माना के उजालों ने तुम्हें दाग दिए थे, बेरात ढले शमा बुझाता नहीं कोई. रहने को सदा दहर में आता नहीं कोई, तुम जैसे गए ऐसे भी जाता नहीं कोई. ये उसके कुछ शेर हैं उस नज़्म के जो मैंने आपको सुना है. नज़्म तो लंबी है इसमें, मगर वो फीलिंग यही इसमें जो इशारे हैं कि बेरात ढले शमा बुझाता नहीं कोई, अब जहर से भी प्यास बुझाता नहीं कोई. तो ये सब जाहिर है कि उनकी जिंदगी से में जो कुछ हुआ था उसी का जिक्र है.
आप मुझे बहुत याद करते हैं.
बहुत याद करता हूँ, और आजकल तो बहुत याद करता हूँ, खास तौर से इसलिए कि आज मैं ये समझता हूँ कि वो उनकी नाकामी में एक बात ये भी थी कि वो वक्त से पहले पैदा हो गया था. बहुत कम उम्र में उन्होंने फिल्म को जो कुछ दिया, बहुत कम उम्र में दिया. और अगर उनको जिंदगी और मिली होती तो बहुत कुछ देते. इसलिए कि जब बैठते थे, यानी एक मेहनत वो बहुत करते थे, काम के मामले में बहुत सख्त थे, लेकिन जब उस तरह बातें करते थे कि क्या बनाना चाहिए, कैसे बनाना चाहिए, इंडियन फिल्म को कैसे कौन सी दिशा देनी चाहिए, तो इस सिलसिले में जो बातें होती थी वो अब बहुत याद आती है कि वो नहीं दे पाए, उनको वक्त नहीं मिला, वरना इंडस्ट्री, हमारी ये फिल्म इंडस्ट्री कहीं से कहीं पहुंची होती.
Thank you. That was good. Fantastic.
Bid goodbye.
बड़ा नादान है बगियन का फिर भी जाने ना जाने ना जाने ना कलियन की मुस्कान है भंवरा बड़ा नादान है बगियन का मेहमान है फिर भी जाने ना जाने ना जाने ना कलियन की मुस्कान है भंवरा बड़ा नादान कभी उड़ जाए कभी मंडलाए भेद जिया के खोले ना कभी उड़ जाए कभी मंडलाए भेद जिया के खोले ना सामने आए नैन मिलाए मुख देके कुछ बोले ना वो मुख देके कुछ बोले ना भंवरा बड़ा नादान है अखियों में रच के चले बच बच के जैसे हो कोई बेगाना अखियों में रच के चले बच बच के जैसे हो कोई बेगाना रहे संग दिल के मिल नहीं मिल के बन के रहे वो अनजाना हो बन के रहे वो अनजाना भंवरा बड़ा नादान है कोई जब रोके कोई जब टोके गुनगुन करता भागे रे कोई जब रोके कोई जब टोके गुनगुन करता भागे रे ना कुछ पूछे ना कुछ बूझे कैसा अनाड़ी लागे रे वो कैसा अनाड़ी लागे रे भंवरा बड़ा नादान है बगियन का मेहमान है फिर भी जाने ना जाने ना जाने ना कलियन की मुस्कान है भंवरा बड़ा
Thank you. See you next time.
I am intrigued and amazed how you guys know such intricate details. Thanks for putting the show. It's wonderful.
Thank you. See you.